So it really is a dance between letting, GPTs or AI help you kind of brainstorm and ideate on it, but not letting it take over your messaging because it's still important to have an authentic tone of voice. The worst thing ever would be trying to talk to a CEO and sounding like a bot.
Hello, and welcome to B2B Demand Dialogues, where we explore the intersection of marketing leadership and cutting edge technology. I'm Gautam Gupta, Senior Vice President of Client Services at Datamatics, and your host for today's podcast. Today, we are navigating one of the hottest topics in marketing, generative AI, from tools like ChatGPT to evolving best practices. We explore how marketers can responsibly harness AI while preserving authenticity and creativity. Uh, Joining me is Melissa Bradbury, Senior Director of Demand Generation at Zillient, with over 2 decades of B2B marketing experience. Hi, Melissa. It's wonderful to have you on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
So, what interested you to marketing, Melissa?
So I actually originally started with a very heavy mathematics background, which I think interests a lot of people. I'm a huge math nerd, but I also love creativity. So I've always been a creative type of person. I did theater and music and things like that as a kid. And so I found that marketing really it brings both sides of my brain into connection, right? So it really feeds both my creative and mathematical side because you have the creativity to decide on the campaigns and the ads and things you're going to run. And then you really have to analyze it afterwards, which is a huge part that I think some marketers aren't great at. And so I'm really lucky that I have that mathematics background. But DG was really an evolution for me. I started more on like a marketing project management and then kind of moved into campaigns. So DG really was an evolution for me, but I love it because I love the fast paced dance of it. I love how you try new things and then like I said, use the math to see if it's working. And I just enjoy that as well. And as far as Zilliant, I really came to Zilliant because I really resonated with our core values. People first, trust, authenticity. So all those were really things that I connected with.
Wonderful, wonderful. You're based in Austin, Texas, city known for technology and music. So does that in any way, integrate with your marketing and personal life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first of all, I love music, so it's always a great time in Austin. But I think there's a lot of local talent to learn from as far as the tech marketers and things like that. There's a lot of great inspiration around here. Being kind of a tech hub and a music hub, it's really interesting the types of people you run into, and I think that inspires me on a daily basis.
And you have the Circuit of the Americas. So me being
Yes.
a Formula One fan, uh, have you had a chance to be to visit all those races and experience the whole F1 vibe?
I've been to a couple of the races, yeah, for sure. But my kids prefer going there. I have two kids and they like going there for things like the other events they have. They have some great community events too. And that's one thing I actually really love about Circuit of the Americas. It's really a great study in engagement of their audience, right? So they have tons of diverse events to really feed to all the different audiences in Austin. But yeah, Coda events are a great time.
Wonderful. Going back to your career, I mean, how have you seen technology adoption, evolve in the marketing space, especially with the emergence of AI? Could you talk a little about that?
So I think early in, obviously there wasn't even hardly AI wasn't even a thing when I first started my career. But even when AI first came around, there was a lot of skepticism. Like, is it going to replace people? Is it going to be something I use? Should I be concerned about it and my job and things like that? But I think as people learn more about AI and the uses and the pros and cons of it, we really have shifted from kind of a wait and see what happens. I'm a little concerned to, hey, this is a great tool to use and a great thing to experiment with and try some pilot projects. And so I think that really has been a significant shift in the way people view AI.
And your current role, especially in demand gen, if you could talk about the challenges you face, especially those where you are able to leverage AI. you could talk a little about that.
Yeah, so I oversee both Zilliant's demand team and their BDR team, so their outbound sales team. And so I think there's a lot of challenges, and I think these are resonate with a lot of people today, right? So doing more with less. Personalization is a huge one. We all know that people are going to open and respond to you more if you've taken the time to really get to know them and personalize their information and what you're sending them. They want it to resonate with them. Obviously, efficiency is a big thing, especially when you're trying to personalize all this. And of course, always the pressure to innovate, to do something new, to stand out, to be creative, right? So, all those are kind of different things that have led me to really utilize some of these AI tools in my everyday life.
And your fellow marketers, what does your peer group say about AI adoption? What do you hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are 3 camps of people, and I think these change over time. So I think the first ones, I'd call them kind of the early adopters. I like to think I'm probably in the early adopter or maybe the second, somewhere in there. These are the people that have been all in day one. They love using AI as a tool because that's what it is. It's a tool. It yields faster learnings. You have measurable ROI you can see when you use AI. And I think then second group would be kind of the cautious explorers, the people that really understand that AI could be a good thing, but they're not really sure where to start. They're not sure, how it can help them. They haven't quite gotten their strategy in place. And then there's the skeptics, the people who still like believe, oh, AI is just going to give you computer generated stuff. Everybody can spot it, all that kind of stuff. And I think the big takeaway I would say is AI is not going to replace people. Right now, it is not anywhere near replacing people. I don't see it in the near future either, but it's a really great tool to use for lots of different things you do on a daily basis. And I think that is really the crux of adopting AI is knowing that there are certain places you can use it to make sure it's really helpful for you, but it's not going to be the end all be all. It's not going to take the place of a good copywriter or a good marketer, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So the highest level of proficiency that you see is early adopters. You won't come across somebody who's an absolute expert on how to use or leverage AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are people who early adopters that are like really adept at it. They have literally woven AI into everything they do. It is a part of their strategy. And I say that as a part of their strategy, right? They are very um purposeful about when they use it and where they use it. And I think that's key because you can't just use AI for everything. And I know we'll probably get into that later on what we kind of use it for and what we don't, but there are places to use it and places not to use it. And so I think it really has to be part of your strategy.
Yes, absolutely. So just walk us through your C-suite targeting campaigns. How do you go from AI-driven ideation to C-level resonance and any kind of human refinement that you bring in the whole process as well?
Yeah, so I think C-suite is especially touchy when you're a marketer, right? Because the C-suite gets 100,000 emails a day, right, and 100,000 phone calls a day, and they don't want to talk to everybody, and so you really have to capture their attention really quickly because they're an audience that where if you don't capture their attention quickly, you're never going to speak to them. Right? And so I think the foundation of good messaging and good thought process for marketing is really we actually have our own GPT. So I don't know how many people know you can actually create kind of your own GPTs, your own like on Chat GPT, and you can load in things like tone of voice, the personas you go after, their pain points, basically a whole bunch of your messaging framework you can load into there. And I'm very lucky that at Zilliant, they want us to use these things. And so the first thing I do is create that GPT. So it's an amazing resource because then once you have all that in, it can really help you with your job on a regular basis. I don't have to tell it every time. I'm a demand gen person at Zilliant and here's my goal, right? It knows who I am every time I log in. So I think that's incredibly important and really exciting to start off with. But from there, what I like to do for things like a C-suite campaign is I really like to use AI for certain types of things. Things like outlines, brainstorming on possible topics to talk about, what their, pain points are, where I should lean in, where I shouldn't based upon the C-level and the product I'm talking about or the pain point I'm talking about. And sometimes I'll even use them to first draft things or outline, like I said, outline things for me. What I don't do is use them for everything and never check anything, right? I think it's really important that you use AI, as I said, as a tool, but you have to have peer review. You have to layer in your strategy and the C-suite priorities that you want to focus on based upon the strategy of your campaigns. So it really is a dance between letting, GPTs or AI help you kind of brainstorm and ideate on it, but not letting it take over your messaging because it's still important we have an authentic tone of voice. The worst thing ever would be try to talk to a CEO and sounding like a bot.
Absolutely. And you won't get their attention.
Yeah,
That's not going to help in any way with the C-suite. Yes.
for
And
sure.
continuing on this point, so what are the biggest risks you caution your team against, when they use AI tools or, the developer GPTs and what have you?
So I think relying totally on AI for everything, and having overconfidence in it because it is still just a tool and it is still only as good as all the things that's scoured on the internet and all the things that's had analysis on, right? So you have risk of off-brand messaging, loss of authentic voice, which I think is huge. Because that's one of the things as a marketer, we want to make sure that all of our stuff sounds the same, it comes across the same. And so we really want to have that authentic tone of voice. So it's important we don't lose that. And it's important we make sure we stay on brand, that we're authentic. And, you know, as much as I love AI, I wouldn't say authenticity is its strong point. Right? It just generates what people put in, and spits it back out. So, I think it's really important to remember AI is a tool, and it is just another tool in a whole bunch of tools that we have. And there's great ways to use it and great ways to experience efficiency, but it's important not to rely on it too much.
Absolutely. And then, let's take this to our second segment around authenticity. So my first question there is, brand authenticity obviously is paramount to every organization. Uh, and especially as AI generated content, proliferates, how do you train your team to spot AI content and what are the telltale signs, if you could share a few?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to spot is to really look at side by side comparisons. I have some great comparisons I show my team when I'm training them that really talks about, what this is ChatGPT and this is regular tone of voice from a marketer just writing it. What can you see the difference? Can you see it, right? And I think, we all know that there's certain punctuations and words and stuff that ChatGPT uses quite a lot. And I think that's a dead giveaway. But just also in the way the sentence is flow, I think is a really easy way to see. And if you put it by side, it's much easier to see. Things like repetitive patterns, generic tone, right? They don't always take an authentic tone. So it's very generic, unless you literally tell it what tone to take. And just lack of brand context and like personal anecdotes, right? ChatGPT can't write a personal anecdote. And so including those is always a good way to tell it's an actual marketer.
Very true. Very true. And how do you decide? I mean, if you have to choose between AI and traditional content methods, how do you choose, and what's your framework for that decision?
Yeah, so I kind of like to think of it as if it's a matrix, with like complexity and creativity. The more creative you want it to be, I personally think the more you need, ChatGPT is great for outlines and stuff, but the more you need a person to be involved, and also the more complex. So I would say ChatGPT kind of lives in the middle of not quite as creative, not quite as complex, right? It can get those everyday tasks done that are kind of a boring for marketers, right? Helping to write an email, helping to outline a new content piece, helping to write some ad copy. Of course, I always say helping because at the end of the day, it's important for us to step in there and make sure it has that little punch, that, that exciting little tidbit that gets people's attention. But it's good for starting that draft, right? But as far as like writing an entire white paper, I would never allow ChatGPT to write my entire white paper. It's amazing to outline things and give me little tidbits or shorten sentences. Sometimes I say things in a really long way and I want it to just be concise. So I'll ask GPT to make it a little more concise. Ask AI for that. So things like that I think is really important, to use it that way. But I would never, I don't use it for highly complex things or things where I want to be incredibly creative, just because I think that requires a little bit more of a strategic mind. Um, And as far as, I also like to assess the risks, right? Like the risks of an email being labeled as a chat GPT type thing, AI, generative AI is less so, right? Because we'll make a few changes. But if you read an entire white paper written by generative AI, you can tell it's generative AI, or at least most marketers can, I think. I think you can also look at it from like a campaign stage and audience type thing. So different audiences, I think, require a different, more of a fine touch, especially things like CEOs, C levels, right? To get to them, you have to be a little creative, a little, you know, punchy outside the box. So, I think that's less of a chat GPT type thing or generative AI thing. But either way we go, it's always edited by my team for consistency, tone of voice, authenticity, brand messaging, all that. We edit everything we do, even if it's something simple as an email.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. This has been such great insights.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure they're going to be great learnings for budding marketers who view this uh, episode. Moving on to our next segment around best practices and strategic implementation. So my first question there is, you use complexity versus creativity matrix for team workflows. Walk us through how would you apply it in the real world?
Yeah, so I kind of touched on this in the last question, but mapping tasks by complexity and the need for human touch. So more complex, I really feel like it needs more of a human touch. More creative needs more of a human touch. And so, for example, like I said, white papers. I would never have ChatGPT write a white paper. I love ChatGPT to help me outline my white papers. Right? What sections do you think would be interesting? Things like that. So I love to start an outline from ChatGPT. I think that's a great way. A generative AI does a great example, great job at that. But even maybe starting a few sections, right? But the real creativity really comes from human minds, and that's what we're trying to get, right? Because that's what sets marketers apart is their way to connect with the audience and have that creativity and get those juices flowing and make people want to read more.
Very true, very true. And then, there is a debate about AI replacing most of us, including marketers. You already shared that you don't see that happening in the near future, at least. But how do you prepare your organization, you know, to be future ready or being prepared?
Yeah. So I think you know, AI won't replace marketers, but marketers that use AI will replace those who don't. I'm a firm believer of that because I think every day everybody is tasked with doing more with less, doing more quickly, getting things into market quickly. The market conditions especially for something like tech, change daily. So it's important that we're flexible and agile in that respect. And AI really helps us do that. So I think upskilling and mindset shifts are key. So by preparing to integrate AI into everyday practices, we can kind of work on that. So things like BDR outreach sequences, marketing emails, ads, things like this. I think we need to be really strategic and decide where we're going to use it and where we're not, and make sure that we're utilizing it because, it is a great tool. So yeah, I think marketers that don't use generative AI or use AI in general, I think are going to fall behind sooner rather than later, honestly.
And yeah, expand more on that. From your experience, where is human insight absolutely irreplaceable? Where you would tell your team, hey, don't use AI here. So,
So I think the big ones are things like if it needs to be empathy driven, if there's some sort of crisis communication or high stakes type of messaging, basically anywhere empathy needs to be involved in your message because maybe it's a little bit of a difficult message to relay or there's some special nuances to it. Don't use AI. AI has no empathy. It was not built for empathy. That is what humans do. So anything that those are involved in, you need empathy or you need, to be fragile with the way you word things. That's a no-go for AI.
sure, sure. And if you have to give, say, 3 tips, for responsible AI adoption, and how would you operationalize this across a team? What would your management process be like?
Yeah. So I think the first tip is always align with your business objectives. Is the risk worth the time and investments. So I love to pilot things, especially when it comes to AI or a new AI type of tool I haven't used. I always start out with a pilot. Make sure in your pilot you have really good feedback loops so everybody can kind of say what worked, what didn't work. I think it's really important for AI, and I think this is actually something my company Zillient does really well. But you have to have guardrails in place for things like privacy, and ethics and data governance. So there's got to be a strong AI usage policy, when to use it, when not to, making sure that if it's being used and there's any sensitive information, that it's a place that you can use it, that, you're not going to be distributing sensitive information to everybody on the World Wide Web. So it's important that we have policies around that. And then I think, using AI to upskill and empower your team is huge. So not just to use AI, but to think critically about how and when it makes sense. And have kind of snackable training and review processes built in so that everybody can continue to upskill on their AI usage, I think is really important. And then, we all know adoption comes when people see it's makes work better and not harder. I think in the beginning, a lot of people can be hesitant because they think it's going to be more work. But at the end, it really does make your work easier and smoother. And so that's, I think people, when they see that, really start to adopt it more.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm a perfect example of that. For demand gen programs, you know, for leaders who are hesitant in adopting AI, what would your suggestions be? Where should they start?
Yeah, so I mean, you don't want to break what's not broken, right? You want things that are working to continue to be working, and I think there's always the fear that when you introduce something new, it's going to kind of rock the boat and mess things up a little bit. But I think what is great to start off with is to start small with some pilot programs, and I like to start with high impact use cases. So things like A/B experiments to compare regular with the AI generated type things like subject lines or dynamic segmentation, things like that are really easy to see a lift, and to see what's working and what's not, and you can reiterate on them quickly. So that's a great place for people to start that are maybe hesitant about using AI for other things. And you really want to remember to think you're evolving. You're not trying to disrupt your process. This is an evolution. So you really want to start small and then continue to then build up how you're using it. So it's not always about fixing things. A lot of times AI is really about optimizing what you're currently doing and just making it that little bit better. I think we all in marketing know, if you make things a tiny bit better down that marketing funnel, it definitely, escalates and creates a lot more opportunities.
Thank you, Melissa. And just shifting gears from the business talks, I have a quick rapid fire round for you if you're ready to go.
Okay. Okay, goodness. Woo. Okay, I got it.
All right. Coffee or tea? What's your fuel?
Oh, I got coffee. Always coffee. My husband worked for Starbucks for a while, so I've got coffee coming out my ears.
Wow. Do you get discounts?
I did. He doesn't work there anymore, but we used to get a free pound of coffee a week.
Cheers to the discounts that you got in the past.
A lot of coffee.
What's your favorite music?
Oh,
Genre?
I listen to everything. I listen to everything from hardcore rap to Broadway show tunes to blues, R&B, pop. I am a lover of music. I love music, and I've passed that along to my children, which I love because they know all the good songs from the 90s and 2000s. So yeah, any music, all of it. Give it to
What
me.
about rock and hard
Oh, yeah,
rock?
I love
And
some good
metal?
rock.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
hardcore rock, yeah, AC/DC, yeah, for sure, I'm there.
That's nice because I have in Austin, in my personal experience, actually attended some live band rock bands, and they were
Yeah,
I think they were local bands, but they were very very good.
yeah.
So
We have
thought I'll bring that
so
up.
much talent in Austin for local bands. I mean, there have been some amazing musicians that have come out of Austin. It's pretty crazy.
I also know that you're a bookworm, so some questions about your books, if you're
Yeah,
ready
I
to
am a
go.
big bookworm, so I usually read. So now that my kids are older, I have the opportunity to read, and I usually read, like, 2 to 250 books a year, so I'm constantly reading. It's what I
Which
do
is
in my spare time.
phenomenal. Phenomenal, phenomenal, amazing. So, any recommendations, books, say fiction?
Hmm. I just read one not a couple years ago that really has stuck with me that I recommend to a lot of people, and it's called One of Us is Lying, by Kara McManus. It's a great book. It's a real easy, quick read, but it's kind of like a who not who done it, but like it's kind of like a mystery. It has a great mystery involved. So I'd recommend that one for a nice, light read.
We all love a good mystery. What about nonfiction? What is a good thing that you read recently?
You
A
know,
good book?
loved Michelle Obama's Becoming. It was an amazing book and one of my favorite biographies that I've ever read. I loved that book. And I also do some historical nonfiction. I enjoy reading about history and things like that. So, yeah.
I had listened to the husband's book when it came out back in the day, and it
Yes.
was very, very insightful as well. I haven't read this one, but surely will.
It's great.
Uh,
It's really, really great. A great read.
what about your guilty pleasures? Unwind ritual from leadership
Oh,
stress.
so besides reading, I like to play games with my family. We love a good board game, a good card game. So we like to play some games. And then you will often find me reading outside by the pool because I like to kind of just be in nature and chill and like sit out by the pool and read because it's just very calming.
It is. It is. If you weren't a marketer, what would you be?
I would be on Broadway. I wanted to be on Broadway for since I was tiny. Yeah, I don't dance very well, but I can sing and I can act. I acted as a kid for a long, long time. So, yeah, I would be on Broadway. In fact, my second grade teacher told my mom if I didn't go into theater, I was missing my calling. But I guess marketing's close.
If you say so. But hey, next one we have to hear a song from you now. I won't put you in a spot today, but next time for sure. If you can act
Okay,
and
yes.
sing, you got 2 out of 3 already bang, So I'm sure dancing can be learned, I'm sure it's easier to
I bet
learn
I
than
could
singing.
probably work. Oh, I would work on the dancing for sure. Yeah.
Super, super. And hope you get to fulfill that dream someday. Uh, Fun fact most in marketing won't know about you.
Hmm. Oh, I'll use the one I always use for two truths and a lie. My truth for two truths and a lie is that I once pitched the first pitch at a Major League Baseball game. So I was
Wow.
young. I was about 13 or 14, and I was a softball pitcher at that time. And my dad was supposed to pitch the first pitch, and it was on Mother's Day. And my mom said there was no way she was going to a baseball game on Mother's Day unless her kid was pitching the first pitch. So he asked his bosses if I could pitch it, and they said yes. So when I was 14,
Wow.
I had it on VHS, which shows you my age. But yeah, I have pictures and stuff from it, and I pitched the first pitch at an Astros game when they were in the old Astrodome before they moved to the new place. So that was a long time ago.
Wow. That's something. That's absolutely one for the record. No, history books, So,
Yeah.
Melissa, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your personal approach to marketing and generative AI. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us on B2B Demand Dialogues. Remember, in the world of AI and marketing, maintain your brand's heart, harness technology wisely, and never lose your human edge. Thank you.